Hey team, and welcome. I'm your host, Carrie, creator of Mother Life, your destination for all things real talk and parenting. This is the IRL group chat, where we talk about the wild balancing act of pursuing careers and passions while also doing our best to show up for our kids. Join me every week as I sit down with some badass parents in my closet and we talk about their careers, kids, and relationships and all of the weird shit that comes up when you're trying to balance the seemingly impossible. One of the things I often marvel at when it comes to the job of parenting is that even in the hardest days, you can't walk away from it. For the vast majority of parents, and certainly the ones listening to this pod, even when you're in the depths of despair, challenge, frustration, exhaustion, you still somehow manage to put one foot in front of the other. It's the perseverance and commitment that in any other setting would be lauded as Herculean. And we're out here just doing this shit day after day. Today's guest personifies that commitment. He lives each day as a single, and when I say single, I truly mean solo, dad and parent to his 3 teenage girls. The safety net is not inherent. There isn't someone to tap in when you're at your wit's end. There's a village and a community, sure, but for this dad, the buck entirely stops with him. And you know what? He's killing it. Today on the pod, we have Dan Cooley. He's a film locations guru that has been finding the backdrops for some of your favorite TV shows and films. Truly. You know that iconic apartment in New Girl? Dan. The way Curb Your Enthusiasm makes you feel like you're living in Larry David's LA life? Dan. The way New York truly felt like a post-apocalyptic hellscape in I Am Legend? Also Dan. The list goes on and on. This episode, like so many, is here to remind us that while parenting can feel heavy, it doesn't mean you can't face it with a smile and a cool look. Enjoy. Welcome to the closet.
Thank you for having me.
How often do you hang out in somebody's closet?
Any chance I get. I find it incredibly fascinating. It's a wonderful space. I'm surrounded by your shoes and jewelry, and what better way to spend a Thursday morning?
I was truly expecting, because I was like, okay, these are the things I know about Dan. I know that you're a snazzy dresser. You've got a strong mustache game.
Yep.
You work really hard as a locations manager, and you're a single dad. Like, those are the facts I know about you. And I broadly know what area of Los Angeles you live in. That is it. And then you came into my house, we poured some coffee, we're having a quick chat, and I learned more about you in those 2 minutes than I have in all of our previous discussions. So I'm very excited to dig into all of it.
Yes, well, being inside the walls of your home have really helped me break down my own personal walls.
I am exactly who you thought I was. Like, there's no surprise when it comes to me. It's like, I'm a little bit a mess. I'm pretty friendly. And that's kind of what my house is like.
I just want to thank you for wearing your pajamas to make me feel more comfortable in your home.
It's 108 degrees today. I'm drinking a hot coffee. If I'm not in a muumuu, like, I am fucked. I actually thought about it. I pulled out pants for you.
Wow, you don't have to do that for me.
I pulled out the pants and I had them hanging on the side of the chair, and I was just like, you know what? I can't do it.
No, I think you made a good choice. This looks solid.
You don't love me in my muumuu, then just forget it.
It's perfect. This is perfect. This is comfortable, and away we go.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to talk about your career trajectory, because I was going through your IMDb just to get a grasp, and I think it's like 60 films and TV projects that you've worked on. So at some point my eyes start to go cross, and I'm like, okay, I'll have to just ask him what his favorites are, because there are so many, and it's all stuff that everybody's heard of. But working in locations is like a niche part of film. I don't think there's any like 4 or 5-year-old out there who's saying like, one day I want to grow up and be a locations manager.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do you end up?
Yeah, it's not a childhood dream, because most people don't even know what it is in the first place.
Exactly.
And it's also, not something most adults, until you start to have a better understanding of like how films are made, how television is made, where you even consider doing something like this. My origin story with it is pretty simple. I had done a lot of writing in high school, and I was going to go to Savannah College of Art and Design for writing short stories, basically in art school. and my mom was in a bad car accident before I was supposed to go off to college. So I went to a smaller liberal arts school called Castleton University, small town in Vermont. It was an hour and a half of where I grew up in Shelburne, Vermont. And my dad had gone there, and my parents couldn't afford to fly me back and forth. So it was a pretty simple decision. Like, I'll just go here. I pledged a fraternity. Like, my freshman year, I met one of the brothers there, Peter Pastorelli. His dad was a location manager in New York that became a producer. And I started working on films with him, and Peter Pastorelli, God rest his soul, has since passed away. So has his father. And they kind of got me my start. And I moved to New York City a week after college and packed up my shit and said, you know, this is what I'm going to do. I love, kind of like the thrill of working in films. My first job was to pick up Eric Roberts at the airport and drive him to a place called the Black United Fund Mansion in East Orange, New Jersey, where he had no idea. It was this small little, I guess you'd even call it like a D horror movie. It was so low in the alphabet pecking order. Called Wolves of Wall Street, not to be mentioned with Wolf of Wall Street, and where it was about werewolf stockbrokers. And I had to explain to Eric, as like a 20-year-old kid, that, or Mr. Roberts, as I called him, that he was going to be staying in this. This was his hotel, as well as our shooting location. Oh my God. Which he immediately called his agent, and I was like, "Oh, is this how the business works?
What the fuck is this? Get me into the Holiday Inn."
I was like, "Cool, I'm being screamed at. This is awesome."
I feel like, you hear stories, costume designers or producers, everybody has this sort of like, we only think there's a couple of entry points. Like, you can be an actor or a writer or a director.
Yeah. Yeah, nobody seems to know what the fuck a location manager does, and I've made a very successful career out of that, and I'm totally fine with my anonymity. At one point I was like auditioning in New York and was like booking, like small little ridiculous things and doing stand-up comedy, and thought like, oh, this is really great, until I started doing locations, and I just thought, boy, I want to be overworked and underpaid. This is fantastic.
This is so much better.
I think this could be a springboard for me. And you know what? I've really enjoyed the freedom of doing it. Like, you have to be a self-motivated self-starter, and it really walks the line between the creative side of it with getting a script and then trying to envision where scenes are going to take place, and the business side of it of figuring out, how to schedule this, negotiating these contracts, just putting permits together. Like, every stupid question anyone will ever have on a film set goes to the location manager. And people say, there are no stupid questions. Well,
there are some, turns out.
You wouldn't have that same opinion if you were a location manager for 20 years. There are a lot of stupid questions. And most of the time, the answer is right at their fingertips. But that's what we get paid to do. We're essentially, like a hotel concierge in a lot of ways. We just get paid to kind of make it happen. And I think it's been really gratifying for me, because it's given me a lot of freedom to like also be a dad. Right.
And do you think that, I mean, we were talking the other day, and I want to get to where dad enters this picture, but it sounds, when you describe what you do, it does sound a lot like parenting.
It is.
It's like herding cats, logistics, anticipating things that other people aren't anticipating that they will need for their own well-being.
Yeah, of course. And look, it's not to say everybody that works in the film industry or Hollywood or whatever you want to refer to it are childlike, but it certainly is an insulated business that breeds a lot of spoon feeding, and it's not that much different, when you have to repeat yourself 100 times when you have kids, or someone goes like, well, why can't we do that? And you're like, because that's not the rules.
Right.
It's not permitted to do it that way.
I wish you guys could see his face right now, because it's such like a dad face explaining to a little child, like, sorry, that's just not the rules.
Yeah. And it's like, and then you go like, and better. And you know better. You've been
I'm
doing this.
disappointed in you.
I'm not upset. I'm just disappointed.
I'm disappointed. Do you think that there's a certain sort of like personality profile when you go around and you meet other locations managers? Because I imagine there is sort of an innate sense of both like patience and attention to detail that's required for that job. Do you think there's a certain type that goes into that type of job?
Yeah, I think it's called type A. I think you have a lot of people who, you have to be highly organized. And I think the most successful ones are highly organized with a great attitude because you know what you're doing, you know what to expect every day, and you know it's going to be difficult. And if it wasn't difficult, everybody would be making movies. But
Right.
that's not the case. It's really hard to do. Every time we finish a film or a large scale television show or a low budget indie, I go, well, that's a fucking Christmas miracle. Like, how did we even do that? It's like that type
After
of
20
thing.
years,
Yeah.
you still feel that way. It's just.
Yeah, it's got to be like the equivalent to childbirth in the 1300s. You're like, well, another one lived?
Wow.
It's a fucking miracle,
Before I get to your move out here, growing up in Vermont, that is also a very particular type. One of my best friends is from Vermont, and there is something about Vermonters. Like, I don't think you have a Subaru, but somebody in your family probably does.
Well, I'll tell you this. I never had a Subaru, but my sophomore year of high school when I was 16 and everybody was getting their license, I think there was 9 kids that had maroon Saabs. And that is not exaggeration.
Yeah.
So Vermont's a very special place. It's my home. It's where I grew up. Even though I've been in California for 16, 17 years. Vermont is a place where it is so progressive. Like the factoids of Vermont, Vermont was the first state to officially abolish slavery, legalize marijuana, and allow gay marriage. That is the holy trinity of holy shit.
Right.
Like you have a place that, my mom, when they called it a secretary and not an administrative assistant or a receptionist, worked for Bernie Sanders when he was mayor of Burlington.
Amazing.
It's like, and this is a Jewish man that I'm pretty sure still sends my mom a Christmas card.
Amazing.
So that's the type of place Vermont is. Vermonters have a lot of pride. We love fish and maple syrup and Ben & Jerry's ice cream, and there's nothing that anyone can do to change that.
But there's also a little bit of a dichotomy too, because you have that, and that's what Vermont's known for. But you also have like conservative lumberjacks. Like there's
Yes.
that type very much as well. Because my friend, a very good friend of mine from a very long time ago, grew up there. He is gay. He does not come from a family
Yes.
that was working for Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
He is what we think of as Vermont, and his family is also the other side of Vermont.
Yes, and like any great state, you have the liberal cities, and it's the moment you step outside, it becomes, very red and very Republican, and I think that is just something that comes along with the kind of split between how you want to live your life. Is it more of like the quote unquote like fast-paced city living, or are you going to have more of a quiet
Fast-paced city living
country
in
existence?
Burlington.
Yeah.
So now your parents, it sounds like, were on this sort of more progressive side of things. You stay at home. That's a hard decision, I think, to make probably when you're 18 and figuring out what your future is going to look like. You stay home. You're close to the family. That's sort of a trade-off you're making at the time. Also, a little bit of foreshadowing just in terms of like being a caregiver and thoughtful about the family dynamic. And then when you tell your parents, this is what I want to do, this is the kind of job I want to do, are they like, cool, never heard of it, Godspeed? Or what was the sort of reaction?
Yeah, so I remember I'd like worked on my first movie, and in New York I was 20 years old, and I kind of got that bug where I was like, man, this is cool. Like, this is exciting. Like, we're pulling shit off. Like, this is fun. You know, like we're moving so fast. I'm like trying to like make deals with people on the street. Like we're like, I dig this. I like a challenge. You know, it was like very exhilarating for me as a young man. And my parents came to visit me at college, and we went to dinner. They like took me and a couple buddies to dinner, and I had just gotten my fraternity letters tattooed on my leg, right? And I'm like, you know, I was like, I wanted to tell my parents like, hey, you know, look, I'm like, you know, was kind of started out going to school. I had like a communications mass media major, which basically means like I don't really know what I want to do.
Sure.
But I knew I was always a film fan, but not a film student, right? Which is kind of ironic because like I love to write, but I would like study films. We grew up down the street. I was kind of a latchkey kid. Both my parents worked like crazy, and so, you know, my mom had 2 jobs at one point. So like I was always home alone. And we had a place called Showtime Video. This was back when like VHS, cassettes were a thing.
Yeah.
And it was walking distance from my house. And I'd walk up and I'd get I'd rent a movie every day to watch after school.
Amazing.
So I'd like make myself a snack after school. I'd watch a movie. And the owner, this guy, Kevin, and I was like, 12 years old. He basically gave me like a rack that was like Dan's picks, like.
So good.
This is my recommendations. And it was like all recommended by like a 12-year-old. And I was just watching like stuff because I was unsupervised that I shouldn't be watching. And he would just give me
Godfather.
Anyway, yeah, just like deep, like films and stuff. And like Apocalypse Now. He's like a 12-year-old's review on Apocalypse Now. And so I was going to tell my mom, like, hey, look, yeah, I was like this, kind of like concentrating on journalism. And I was like, but I think I want to work in film. And I knew my parents would be like, what the hell are we paying for college for? This is, you're not even going to use this. And you're not going to, and for years, it took like a good decade of my parents saying like, it's not too late to do something else. Like, you don't have to work in film. Like there are you could just get it like a real job, or you could, try to work for the newspaper.
Right.
And then I like started like, kind of telling them like, oh, no, this is what I'm making, for money. And they're like, really?
Somebody's paying you?
They're paying you to do that? Yeah. I was like, yes. Like, leave me alone. I don't ask for anything.
Right. I always feel like for parents, it's like, oh, wait, you haven't actually asked me for money in a while, so I guess you must be sort of fine.
Exactly.
Or you're selling your body, whichever.
Exactly. So we go to this dinner, and I was close to selling my body, but thank God I never got there. And so we go to this dinner, and I want to tell my mom 2 things. I want to say, hey, I'm going to work in film. I've decided, like, I want to work in film. And, I wanted to be like, hey, look, don't freak out. I have this tattoo. So I go, Mom, I have something I want to tell you. And I've got like a couple of buddies at the table.
Yeah,
and my
I'm
dad's
imagining
there.
the dynamic, yeah.
So my mom goes, you have AIDS? And I go, what? No, I don't have fucking AIDS. And my friends are like laughing their ass off. I'm like, what is happening in your mind right now?
That's the bar, man.
Like
that's the bar.
Like,
so like literally anything you were going to say couldn't be that scary.
Yeah. And this was like, by the way, this isn't, 1981. This is like 2001,
sure.
And I'm going, no, I don't have AIDS. I got a tattoo. And she was like, oh my God.
Just a tattoo.
Yeah. And my dad goes, you could get AIDS from a tattoo. And I was like, oh, okay. I don't have AIDS.
Everybody calm down.
I don't have AIDS. But I do want to work in film. And my parents were like, oh, really? We're like, well, what are you gonna like? It was so foreign to them, the concept of like, what does that even mean? Like, we live in Vermont. Like,
yeah.
What is it? If I told them I was gonna be a farmer, they would have been like, oh, that's great.
Right.
Fantastic.
Yeah. All that time in 4-H paying off now.
And my dad was like, do you want to if you want to be a filmmaker, do you want to film me hunting?
Right.
We could make hunting videos.
Okay, so you break the news to them. How old are you at this point? Like 20?
Yeah, I was like 20, 21, because, I went to London. I did a semester. There was a writing program. I had this most incredible college professor named Sanjukta Ghosh, and she just there's always that one, people have that one teacher, that one professor that kind of changes the course of their life. She made me enter this writing program. I got accepted. We went 15 kids. We went to London and lived in London for 6 months in college, did a semester abroad. It was incredible. And so she kind of urged me to do this. And when I got back, I just felt like I could kind of do anything. And that's when I, really started going to go work with Pete in Pastorelli in New York, and wasn't even out of college yet. I still had to graduate college, and I just thought to myself, like, I gotta go do this. Like, this is exciting. I was like, doing journalism. We were doing international stories when we were in London, and I got very fortunate to like do some really cool things, like following a young IRA member.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, I like to tell fake stories as well as real stories, and so I just thought, like, well, this is kind of fun because you have both. You could tell a true story, or you could just do something that's completely imaginative and fictional. I think a part of what sets aside like a good location manager as like someone who's maybe doesn't give a shit as much is really just caring. Like, I always want to do a good job because I don't look at it as a job. I look at it as a career.
Right.
And I think when you love your work or what you're doing, that's a career. And if you don't, you're just checking in, you're checking out, like, that's a job. You can't love everything you're working on.
Yeah.
Because you still have to feed your family. And sometimes,
sure.
The interesting thing about film and TV is that we stop and start. So, like, sometimes you're not working with people more than, 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, a year, and you're moving on to the next thing. And when you find people you really like to work with, you keep working on projects. You find ways to keep working on projects together. And I think that makes it so much easier when you like the people that you're with and respect the people that you're with. Just like a partner in life or family situation,
Totally. Yeah.
So.
Well, that's why I feel like on sets, I'm always so interested in like romances that happen as a consequence of a set. And it's like, oh, it makes sense because you're in this like crazy intimate environment that's super concentrated for this period of time. And everybody's putting everything into this thing. It's like, especially if there is like a sort of romantic through line through a story, it's like, oh, okay, like I understand how this could happen. Okay, so when do you move to New York? Or sorry, to LA?
So I met I met my now ex-wife in New York. I was 25, she was 24. We dated for 5 months. She got pregnant. She's from California, grew up in the East Bay and outside San Francisco, and we had this big decision to make, like our first child was due in November, and we lived in a third floor walk up in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, like Greenpoint border. So we thought, do we want to raise kids here in New York and be snowbound? I love New York. I didn't really want to leave, but I kind of did it, for her initially. Yeah. So she could be close to family, and we spent a year in the East Bay, Danville, ironically. And no, I'm not a narcissist. It just worked out that way. And
I mean, guys, his last name is literally Cooley. Like, are you fucking kidding me right now?
That's a lot of pressure to put on a kid.
It's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure.
I think you delivered.
Well, you have to. I feel bad for my kids because my kids are like, I'm like, hey, like, have that Cooley confidence. You try
that Cooley confidence.
You try to build them up, like you can do anything. And they're like, so I feel like it's a healthy confidence to have, but it is a lot of pressure. Everyone's like,
Cooley.
You got to be cool.
You got to be cool.
You got to keep your cool.
Luckily, the definition of cool is expanded massively over time. There's a lot more that can fit in there.
Oh, thank God. It's so hard to live up to.
Yeah. Okay, so wait, let's just pause there for a second, because this is actually like a pretty big fucking deal. You've been dating your then girlfriend for 4 months, 5 months, find out you're pregnant. Yeah. And you're both like, great, let's have a kid.
I think I was more like, yeah, look, like this was, first pregnancy, either one of us had dealt with. For me, it was like, we're going to do this. Like, let's move, let's move forward. We can do this. Like, we're young and in love. Her parents were super pissed. Like, she lived with her older brother. Like, we basically all lived together, and he was giving us a lot of options and roads that we could take. And I was like, what are we doing? Let's, we can do this. People get through, far worse. It's like, we're having a baby. It's not like a terminal illness. And and we did it, and we moved, and it's like if we had done anything else, like I wouldn't have like this incredible young woman, that's 16 now, and just an amazing daughter.
And what was it? So, your first time dad, what were sort of your expectations about being a parent at that age? Like, what were your role models? What did you think the job of a dad was? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like have a really like a fucking clue, except to know like what I didn't want to do from seeing my own dad do, know? And it's like, and I think that's like the circle of life when you go, I have to break this cycle of, whatever it is. And my dad wasn't like an alcoholic or anything. He just, his father was a prison warden. He grew up on a prison farm, like in Vermont. And, he was just
a prison
like,
farm?
Yeah.
That sounds very like Nordic.
Like
do we have
Shawshank.
Those here? Yeah. Do we have those?
Well, back then,
Okay.
Everything was very localized. And so I think he just grew up like with not a lot of love from his parents. And I think he overcompensated for that. Like didn't really know how to kind of do that himself. And I think, my goal was always to like, especially having daughters, was just to be super loving with them, but also, try to teach them as many skills for life, as I can. Cause, let's be honest, like it's not an easy world to grow up in, especially now with so much technology and just the immediacy of swiping left, swiping right. Like everything's like, your thumb is the most important part of your body.
Yeah.
And it's just try to break and get away from that as much as possible.
So, okay. So you're kind of have some guiding principles. This is sort of the kind of guy I want to be for my kid at the time. And then how far apart are the other two that come?
Yeah, so right now the kids are 16, 14, and 12. So we had 3 girls. Once we moved to California, we spent a year in the Bay Area, and then I moved to LA. I had worked on a non-union movie that ended up flipping, which means the union found out about it, showed up on set, made it go union, and that was the Hollywood Teamsters 399, and that's how I got in. And
wow.
My first movie, I did was a movie in California, was in the Bay Area called Milk, which was a
the Harvey Milk story.
Yes, with Sean Penn and Josh Brolin and Gus Van Sant directed, and that was an incredible experience. But after that, there was nothing, so I had to start going to LA, and that's where I was like started working on non-union stuff. And thank God I got into the union that way, and then I had an opportunity to do a TV show, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and then
never heard of it.
And then that was like, we have to move to LA, honey.
Right.
Like we have to move to LA. Like things are happening.
Yeah.
And like now we gotta go. So we did, and then had 2 more daughters. So I have Clementine, Penelope, and Gwyneth.
Great names, strong names.
Yeah.
Love those.
Yeah. Thank you. Me too.
Yeah.
And I hope they do as well. And then we're like off and running. And then for, 10 years, we were married for 10 years, and it was a great partnership. There's always like I could have done this, I could have done that. I never had any, like real regrets. Like except for the fact that looking back, like she never worked. And at first that was great. Like we made that choice, like for her to stay at home, be a stay-at-home mom. We made that choice together, and that was, I thought a beautiful thing at the time, because she got to spend a lot of time with the girls when they were little. And but as they kind of got older and got into school and then still not working, it just became problematic, let's say. And that wasn't
too much time alone.
Yeah. With her own devices, and developed some very bad habits that led to some catastrophic decisions to our marriage. And now I have the kids on my own. I have full custody, and legal custody is what they call tie breaking, which means I still have the final say with any decision if I want to do like change kids' medication, or put them on a medication, or send them to a different school. I have to reach out to her and say, do you object? Well, and then if she does, I, could say like, look, like, can we come up with any alternatives? And if she still objects, I say, well, I'm going to do it anyway because I have diverting authorities. And I think this is what's best for them. And it's not about you.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the way we're living our lives now. And
how often do they see her?
Currently, she has visitation only, which is, at my discretion, but I try to encourage the kids to see their mom, and she has a checklist that she needs to kind of, follow. It's not, I don't think that she is a bad person. I think that she's on her own journey, and that is tricky to navigate. And I think, where that starts is with honesty, and I think that's one of her challenges right now as she kind of tries to get well. So she hasn't started seeing the kids yet, but we're trying to, if she can kind of get a few things in place, then hopefully they can start seeing.
How long is that? How long has it been?
It's been about a month since she's seen him.
Okay.
But it's been almost a year where I've had the kids full time, and we tried to do a few days over the summer. But where she was having them a few days a week. But that didn't really like work out. So
yeah. How does it feel for you, in those situations where you are handing your kids over for a couple of days, knowing that like maybe this isn't the environment that you would ideally have them in? Do you like get a pit in your stomach? Do you like how do you feel going into those sorts of handoffs?
Well, I think like any good parent, wants structure for their kids and consistency. Yeah. And that is what children, in my experience, thrive in, right? Is be consistent, always show up for them, right? And give them structure. Like, you're not there to be their best friend. Like, you also have to be a parent. And I think as a single parent, that's the fine line, the balance that I have to find is like, I can't be too tough.
Yeah.
I have 3 daughters.
Yeah.
But I can't be too cool because that's doing them a disservice.
Yeah.
So you have to like find like a, kind of a reward system of like, okay, you got your homework done. Yes, you can hang out with friends. Okay. You're, whatever, you're doing better with this. You got your chores done. Okay. Yes. Now you can have this. So, I think it's really, kind of tricky because you have, when the kids go to their moms, you don't know
what the structure
what
is.
That's going to be because it's been so erratic, right? And when you have a parent that's not as stable as, you would hope, then anything kind of goes because they're trying to make friends. They're trying to like win points. They're trying to be cool.
Yeah.
And I think in any divorced parents, there's always someone doing that on one side or the other. Or at times I've even found myself like trying to be like, hey, let's just take it easy today, because also like the kids have gone through a lot of shit.
Yeah.
And you want to be like sensitive to that and understanding about it, but you can't like totally give into it either, because like the world is going to give you a lot of shit.
Totally.
And we're all going to go through that. So we got to figure out better ways to handle it.
Have you ever wondered, wow, I would love for this podcaster to sell me something already? Well, you're in luck. Today I'm selling you on something highly exclusive, highly niche, highly Mutha. Just kidding, we're in the early stages over here, but if you've got a company or a cause you'd like to promote on the pod, get in touch. We're a good time.
Structure and therapy and stuff like that is healthy. So yeah, it is nerve-wracking when they go. So at least now what is far less nerve-wracking is just kind of hoping and praying like, okay, she's going to work on herself and her stuff, and then the kids are going to get a better mom out of it because that's what they deserve.
Yeah.
And I want to encourage that relationship and help that relationship, but not in the state that she was in and has been in.
Right.
Because at a certain point you go, hey, look, if you can't put the kids first and make it about them, then you need to step out of the way so they can, get to where they need to go in life. And that's That's a hard thing for parents to understand, because I think a lot of, there are a lot of parents out there that like make it about themselves. And
Yes.
the moment you have a kid, or kids or whatever, it's no longer about you.
It really isn't. And I say that a lot to my friends, to my partner, or my husband, just as a reminder. Like, I think, some people would say like having kids is extremely selfish in some ways, like you want to perpetuate your DNA if you're having biological kids, or whatever. I think it is probably one of the most, if you're doing it the way I think it's supposed to be done, the most selfless thing you could do, because you have to go into it saying, I am not expecting anything from you.
Right.
And my husband likes to say it's paying it forward for your own childhood. Like somebody invested in you at some point, and this is your opportunity to pay it forward. And I think that's a better way of looking at it.
Yeah.
But if you go into parenting saying, I'm doing this because I need people to take care of me when I'm old. I'm doing this because I need a friend. I'm doing the only, I think, real good reason is I'm doing this because I want to have the experience of being a parent.
Yeah. And I think that's a beautiful way to look at it. And you have little kids, right? How old are they now?
4 and almost a year.
Okay, so you're in a stage where like everything is like, you're still like changing diapers and wiping butts and like, making every single meal for them. And that is like, there is no payback at that point. You get to enjoy, smiles and you have these moments of like, wow.
They say something funny or whatever.
Right,
yeah.
Right. And you're like, oh my God, like they're growing and learning, and like you're in like the cutest stage, and then when they become, teenagers, I think around like puberty, at least for like girls, in my experience, it's kind of like 10, 11, 12, those tween years, like are really tough. Like that's when like they're kind of coming into their own bodies and, hormones and their own experiences of like who they want to be and, how they're going to dress and what their style is going to be. And they're like figuring, these things out as they're influenced by others. That's just like the most, like a teenager is the most selfish creature on the planet.
Right.
And you have to just go in knowing that like occasionally they do something.
They'll throw you a bone.
Yeah. Exactly. They're like, Dad, I made you a sandwich. Like last night, my youngest she saw me like still working and grinding and like, I'm still like getting text messages and trying to be like, what did you do today? And like put the phone down and like focus on her. And she walked to the grocery store with me. We have a Trader Joe's like a block away. And it was like such a nice moment to like just be present and talk to her. But I started getting so many phone calls and emails for work when we got back home. She's like, Dad, sit down. She's like trying to put a blanket on me. Just like put a show on. What do you want to watch, Dad? House of Dragons? Like, like
sweet.
just being sweet to me. Right. And it's like,
you're like, I'll remember that when you're being a raging bitch tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. Right. When you're crying because you don't want to get up for school because you're like, just not feeling it today.
Yeah.
It's like, those types of things. And you have those moments where you go like, they get it. But like, we can't have an unrealistic expectation as parents to say like, you need to do this because all the time. You just have to like, that's why we all sound like broken records, right? Because like we repeat ourselves and they go, I know, you told me 500 times. And I go, yeah, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to tell you 500 times. So like the moment they do it, I start to back off.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, they did it. So like it's sinking in.
Right.
So I don't have to be.
You take the win where you can
get
it.
And now I'm like, okay, cool. Now I'm going to back off. You did it.
How did you handle, I'll like never forget, I got my period for the first time when I was at my dad's house. My parents are divorced. And luckily he's a doctor. So I was like, Dad, I got my period. But in your house, when things like that are happening, body stuff is happening, they've got questions. How is the flow of communication?
It's surprisingly great. Like I can honestly remember like each one of their first periods, which I don't know if I should even have that in my mind, but
yeah, man.
But it's like things for me that like stood out. Like I remember my oldest, who will probably kill me for saying this on record, but I remember her day of her 5th grade graduation, she got her first period. And I had got her a bike. And I like literally have a picture of her like, hey, sit on your new bike. And she was like, kind of like on her tiptoes, like holding herself up. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you just, like, duh.
We've got something going on here.
Like, don't be an idiot, Dad. Of course, you know. And she's like, no, I love it. I love the bike. I'll ride it later.
Yeah.
Like,
in 4 to 6 business days.
I'm like, yeah, it's fine, honey. Totally fine. Yeah. Forget the bike. I'll put it in the garage. But it's like I have these like moments where like I can like go through the list of like each one, you know, where I'm like, yes, it's like these things like stood out. And like, thank God the other 2 happened in summer.
Right.
You know, like, and it was just like, didn't have to go to school. But what I've done is like, my oldest was very cool about it. Like we had conversation. I just get her the stuff that she needs. She came with me to the store. She picked it out. We kind of like tried to buy, I must have looked like a crazy person with like a grocery cart
like
full
5
of
different kinds
like
of pads
and stuff. Like, hey, what do you need? You probably need like a flow. You know? And I'm like literally like bought them like underwear, special underwear for it. And now with like my younger 2, we're like, because now I'm in a house where 3 women all on their periods.
Yeah.
So there is a certain point in the month where I just like keep my head down and keep ice cream on the ready.
Shut the fuck up, Dad.
Exactly. And they start to get loud with me, and I'm like, hey, what you and then I go, oh, okay, what am I doing? Yeah, just I'm not gonna. There's no win.
Yeah.
There's no like, I gotta just let this one go. And so I share a bathroom with my younger 2, and I just keep the bottom drawer stocked. And every once in a while, I'll open it up and just like, it needs a little reshuffle.
We need a top up.
Restock. Yeah, I need a topper there. And that's it. I just, you know, sometimes when they go to the store with me, they'll, you know, just get their own stuff, no questions asked. And I'm like, oh yeah, just put it in the cart. Okay. No problem.
But it's clear that there's like a dialogue. They're comfortable. They're coming to you. They're not like going somewhere else to find out the things they need to know. No,
like we have open conversations about, you know, like sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You know, like I have a junior in high school who's, you know, goes to a Catholic school and is not a troublemaker. You know, like really great young lady, and but we have discussions about, you know, those things like. And
Catholic school is definitely not having those discussions with her. Or if they are, exactly. It's just like, if you look at a man, you're getting pregnant.
Yeah, I have to make up for that and go, hey, you know what? Like, here's the truth. Here's the reality. Like, let's, you know. But also, you know, they're still, like, kids are not like kids when we were kids.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to sound like an old man, but it's like like, for example, we played outside.
Oh, yeah. Unsupervised.
Like, we did shit. We talked to each other.
We did.
You know, it's like we did things in person with other kids.
Sure did.
And I think, you know, just them kind of going through these experiences with COVID a few years ago. And that was the reason why I sent my daughter to Catholic school. And it was totally her choice and her choosing. She came to me and said, Dad, I can't, like, sit in front of a computer. And I was like, yeah, duh, you don't work in an office.
Yeah. Like,
of course you shouldn't be sitting in front of a computer. You should be like in school socializing. And she had friends that went to this school, and we, you know, I grew up Catholic, but my parents didn't really, you know, practice probably as much as we, you know, we could have or should have. And
a Christmas Catholic.
Yeah, exactly. A Christmas Catholic. And
I just made that up. The Jew in the room just made that up.
No, well, listen, I'm writing it down. So, you know, I thought, well, this would be good structure at a time when they need it most.
Yeah.
And it's been like the best decision we made. Like it's been so great for her. You know, but that being said, it's like, yeah, I have to cover everything that's not covered wherever I can cover it.
And what's your support system like? Because like you do sometimes work 18-hour days, or like you will be given a crazy opportunity to go do something. How is being the parent on duty affecting what jobs you decide to do? And then when you're on the jobs, who's helping you with the kids?
Well, that's a great question, Carrie, because it's the most difficult thing to juggle. I always say I get more stressed out, you know, trying to meet the expectations of all the kids stuff that we have to do. Like, you know, homework, extracurricular activities, pickups, trying to get everybody. I mean, you know, I have to get 3 young ladies out the door on time in the morning to get to 3 different schools.
Oh my God.
That in itself is like what, and the nice part about it is like I remember watching this thing where it's like a Marine talking about like get up in the morning and make your bed so you feel like you've accomplished something.
I've seen that.
And I'm like, yeah, get up in the morning, get 3 young ladies to school at 3 different schools on time. And I'm like, I can fucking do anything today.
Yeah.
Like,
throw me a problem work.
Yeah, I'll go work with the craziest asshole in Hollywood after that because I got them to school on time. You know, it's like, it does. So, you know, not to say I work with crazy assholes.
No.
Just an exaggerated.
Just to be clear.
Yeah.
He loves the people he works
everyone's
with.
Wonderful. Everyone's
Everybody
great.
is an A+.
Yeah, totally cool. Totally cool. But, you know, it's that type of thing where, like, you already feel like you accomplished something to start the day. And for a while, I had a nanny who was helping out a few days a week just with pickups after school. But, you know, as things kind of progressed with their mom, because it hasn't, like, it wasn't always this way where she wasn't capable of contributing and helping out. Like, you know, we got separated 5 years ago. We've been divorced for, you know, going on 3 years. And for a while we had 50-50. So it's within that time since we've been separated where there's been a deterioration for her. And so I think my nature is just when I see something, you know, falling apart, I want to like, I have to do more myself.
Yeah.
I can't just go like, haha, okay.
The kids are going to suffer.
Yeah,
oh, well.
like even her failures, even if I'm like upset with her or, you know, because of the choices she's made or things that she's done to me, like personally, I still have 3 kids with this person and I still like root for her as a parent, as a co-parent.
For sure.
To like do well because if she's doing well, the kids are doing well.
Totally.
So, you know, but when someone's just not capable of doing that, like you got to do more.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like where I'm at with the situation is like now that they're older, I don't really need a nanny. Like we live close enough to the high school and middle school for the kids to walk home if they need to. So when I can pick them up, it's a luxury, you know, because some days I get to work from home or I'm doing, you know, where I can like pop out and go pick them up. And, you know, drop-offs are tougher because nobody wants to just drop your kids off at school. It's like a hard thing to do. So I try
there's like this app now. You know about the app?
I don't know about the app. I've like heard a little bit about it.
I think it's called like Hop Skip Ride, or I'll find out what the name is. I'll put it in the show notes if anybody else is curious. But my friends have started using it because they have multiple kids going to different places. But it's basically like Uber for kids, specifically for pickups and drop-offs.
So I've heard about like the kind of kids Uber thing. Like, I'm just like such a protective dad with 3 girls on my own.
But this is like vetted. Like it's specifically for kids, and it's like everybody's background checked. It's I think a lot of like women who are the drivers who like used to be in caregiving other roles that like used to be nannies or whatever it is. My friends are using it for kids who are younger than yours, but anyway, it's just like so fascinating to me because when you are really doing it on your own, it's like there is no safety net.
Yeah.
And also the type of job you do, you could be gone for need to be gone for like 18 hours.
Oh, totally. And it's like, and as I've moved up in my career too, it's like on a lot of the either like TV shows or movies I work on now, like I'll also, you know, get a producer credit or I'll have like a location manager, you know, in place that are all these like, you know, people that have been with me for years. You know, I really believe in like promoting from within. So it's like a second family, you know, it's so cliche, but you spend so many hours with these people that like really do like, I care about them genuinely and they are like family to me. And like my kids call my coordinator Auntie Leslie.
That's
and
cute.
She's like so much more, you know, than that, you know, it's like, she's like such a, you know, friend and confidant, but like those are relationships that are built over years. And, you know, it's like everybody, it's kind of like a team effort where, you know, people offer to help or sometimes there's like, you know, a neighbor or someone that can give them a ride here and there with extracurricular stuff. But I try to be present as much as possible because showing up for kids, like that means everything. Like my parents didn't always have that option, they had to work so much. And I do work a lot, but, kind of, stepping up into these other roles in film and TV have really helped me, have a little bit more freedom to trust the people I work with when I can step away and, go to the soccer game or be there for their play or, whatever it is if it's meaningful to them, I want to try to be present for it because, that's the stuff they remember.
Oh, totally. That's the random shit that people end up in therapy over is like, my fifth grade play, my parents. And it's like your parents were actually like working their asses off, but they weren't there. And that's kind of what you saw.
Yeah, totally. It's their perception. We all have our perception.
Totally.
And so it's been difficult and challenging, but I feel like every year it gets a little bit better. And this year, the kids have all started school and it's been great so far. I mean, mornings are tough. Like people don't want to get up. I don't want to get up in the morning some days.
Yeah.
But it's been great. The kids are all thriving and doing really well.
And for you, where is Dan finding time for yourself? Like how in all of this what does time for yourself look like? And do you have any time for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, Carrie, because self-care is important.
Self-care is important.
And I like to try to work out because for me that kind of gets my it gets like a lot of energy out, right? And that's a good stressor for me.
Yeah.
It's, prevents me from like hitting the bottle.
Right.
Because it's like
sure.
Your nerves are just like
shot,
wrecked from juggling kids and then work and then so many spinning plates. So if I can like get a workout in, I really like hot yoga. That's like
you can just go outside today.
I know,
and do
or
some
yeah,
Bikram.
exactly.
Yeah,
just stretch out in the sun. I like hot yoga. I like to go to the gym a few days a week, and just get a workout in, and that's a great de-stressor for me. And I play stickball on Saturdays when we're in season.
What is stickball?
Stickball is like if baseball and cricket had a baby.
I mean, how do I not know about a whole sport?
Yeah, it's fun. It started at, turn of century in New York. It was something they played in the streets with a rubber ball.
I feel like I've heard of this, but I didn't realize. Yeah, I feel like I didn't realize that this is something. Like I think I knew it was something kids did in the street. I didn't know it was a real thing that people did outside of that setting.
Much like being a location manager, it's very niche, and but it's we have chapters all over the country. A little plug with Yorkfield Stickball, YFS.
Hashtag Yorkfield Stickball, people.
And you can also go online and find that.
We'll put that in the show notes.
And thank you. And so we have chapters in New York, New Orleans, Rosarito, Mexico, Portland, Seattle, Pittsburgh, and here in LA. And we have a great group of guys. It's a lot of production people.
Interesting.
And that play in our LA league, and it's fun. We get out and like for a couple hours on Saturday, we hit some tennis balls with some wooden dowels and feel like we've.
Are you wearing like a paper boy hat and overalls and like breeches?
No, but I take suggestions.
I have like a very I'm thinking Meatpacking District, New York. Early 1900s look.
Yeah, it's a very Brooklyn-esque thing to do.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's some guys like express themselves with crazy costumes and
amazing.
And we travel, we play in tournaments.
Okay, I'm gonna Google this later. I'll go down that rabbit hole when I'm procrastinating later.
It's a fun one.
But
that's what I do.
Now I'm gonna ask you the most cliche parent question for a single parent.
Sure.
Do you date? Do you have time to date? Do you have interest in dating? How does that fit into this whole picture?
Yeah, I try to. I'm not like a dater, or I'm not on any apps or anything like that.
Yeah.
Like, I have, like someone that I've, been seeing, and it's like the only person the kids have ever met. But, it's such a tricky thing to navigate because it takes a lot of patience and understanding from anyone that's a potential partner.
Yeah.
And I think dating in Los Angeles especially, it's hard for other people to go, oh, we're dating and this isn't all about me.
Right.
So that's been a really kind of tough world, for me to do properly, like I would if I were a single guy or a younger, guy without a care in the world.
Yeah.
So it's like I always have to put the kids first, and that's like really always like the way it's going to be, because they can't take care of themselves, nor should they. And, I think like that's my sacrifice.
It's your greatest life's work, those 3 kids.
Look, I've been so lucky in my career. Because it's a lot of luck too. Like you can have talent or you can have a good personality, right? But so much of it is timing and, having opportunities to show what you can do.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you don't get those opportunities, you could be like the best at whatever it is. But until you get the opportunity to prove yourself, there's nothing, no one's ever going to know that. Right? So I've been really lucky. I've had a lot of accolades. I've been able to work on some, pretty amazing things with some pretty amazing people. But my greatest accomplishment is being a dad.
And getting those 3 kids to school on time.
And that's the career that I'm most proud of. Yeah, exactly. Getting the kids to school on time.
I love that. Okay, so I have 2 questions to wrap up, but I really enjoyed this conversation. So my first one is just, has there ever been a set that you've been on and that you've just said, this is incredible? Like, I can't believe I'm here right now. This is just nuts. Because you've seen a lot in your 20 years working in the field.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a few that come to mind. I remember like being in New York, working on Spider-Man 3 and seeing like these, Spidey cams with like the camera on like essentially zip lines from building to building to like early days of technology before the CGI, where you could just not have to put cameras up to do this and just everything's on like computers now, where you actually had to set it up to make it look this way, and just being like, this is the crazy shit. Like we're putting cameras for like between buildings on a zip line and hanging above New York City streets. There was just seeing, I mean, look, most recently we did Beverly Hills Cop for Netflix, which is just like such an incredible experience. Closing down Rodeo Drive for a car chase, closing down the 10 freeway to like throw a car on a line off of a ninth floor of a parking structure. We landed helicopters in on the steps of City Hall in Beverly Hills, which has never been done before, and then chased through the streets. Like every time I step on a set where we're doing something that feels like hasn't been done in years or is like cinematic history, like it's never been done, that's when I go like, wow, this is an accomplishment, or this makes me feel like we've all done something. Because like I don't do it alone, it's a team, it's a big group effort. And it's so that makes me feel really happy for like everyone involved, like we're doing something cool. And then I've also been in part of things that are like really dramatic and emotional, like working on Milk, and like we had to change 3 blocks of the Castro to 1972 through 1978 for different periods of Harvey's life, and just seeing everyone in costume. And we had this amazing art department that just changed blocks of city street to like reflect the time period 30 years prior. Is just it's like really kind of like you see people getting emotional over it who were there and experienced that, and you go like, wow, this is like a part of like we've recreated a part of history.
It's magic.
It's magic. It's movie magic.
Also, I lied to you. I have 2 last questions because that one just reminded me. I have to ask you. You worked in probably one of the most recognizable apartment sets, I think, for most people my age who have at least recently during COVID re-binged New Girl.
Oh, yes.
What season did you join that show?
I did the very first season.
So you were part of that whole...
Yes. Yeah, so we shot on So the first season we shot things practically, which meant
Oh.
like we went to the real places and before they built them. And then season 2, like the show, the first season was like the hardest, like one of the hardest shows I had ever done at that point, because we were doing comedy on this like really tight budget and really tight schedule, and nobody thought it would kind of like blow up the way it did at the time. And so we like went to the Prince Bar and shot like the real bar, and would just keep going back to like the real bar. And then we shot an apartment that was on Traction Street in the Arts District, and we used the exterior of that building. And then like seasons passed, they built the apartment, they built the exterior of on the Fox lot, and we were like, I was like, wow. So I went from like, I only did the first season because I moved on to do it's like a better opportunity for myself. And
But you did the season that then created the aesthetic that went on to become sets.
yeah. And I thought to myself, now looking back at it years later, I go like, oh yeah, isn't that fun? It was,
Yeah.
I always do like the hardest thing, and then it just gets easier as it goes.
Classic. Kind of like parenting, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's something.
Story of my life.
There's something, that and like the Friends apartment, I feel like are two of the apartments that people look at and like, oh, when I'm that age, I'm gonna be living with my friends and that sort of setup. And then it's like, oh, if you have $7,000 a month or whatever it would actually
Yeah, so
cost.
then we did, for Curb Your Enthusiasm one season, we did the cast reunion of Seinfeld. So Larry David brought, we did a story arc where he brought Jerry and Michael Richards and Jason Alexander and Julia Louis-Dreyfus all back together for what he was going to pitch was like the reunion episode. So the producer, Aaron O'Malley, actually like tracked down the Seinfeld apartment set that was in a museum and shipped it to CBS Radford where they originally did the show. And we put it back together there.
Wow.
And shot on the set. It was like goosebump moment where you go like, oh my God, I have chills. Like I grew up diehard fan of Seinfeld.
Yeah.
And getting to see the whole cast back together and how cool everybody was just like, whoa,
That's amazing.
Another one of those moments where you walk onto a set and you're like, holy shit.
I'm
like,
doing
we're
something special.
Yeah, this is cool.
Okay, so now my last question is, that's the career last question, the parenting last question. You are now in the thick of kids and social media age. And I know there's a lot of anxiety as parents approach kids of that age. Like, how the fuck am I going to navigate this? How am I going to handle this? We know the research tells us that like sort of prolonged use of social media is not good for kids' mental health, yada, yada,
Yes.
yada. It's like contributing to the anxiety and depression epidemic that we see in kids today. How have you approached it? What's your philosophy around like your kids and their use of social media?
So I was like able to keep the kids off of social media for a pretty long time. So like my oldest, like her mom let her get it when she was like 12. And I was like, whoa, no, way too young.
Yeah.
So that became, so within like a few months, I had her delete it.
Yeah.
Because I said like, look, I said, there's nothing good that really comes from this. Like, you just go down a rabbit hole, you scroll, you see things like, I think you're too young to see. There's a lot of things that are confusing. It doesn't like, is not like a lot of great, yes, there's a few like empowering things, whatever. But like, for the most part, it's like women in bikinis with big tits. And I'm just like, you don't need to look like that.
Yeah.
Do not feel pressure to look that way. This is not a thing. And I feel like it's just like aesthetic porn,
Yes.
style porn.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
And so she got off of it for a while, but like, this past year got back on Instagram because it's just how kids are communicating.
Yeah.
So she doesn't, it's like when kids meet each other now, they don't go, hey,
What's your number?
what's your number? They go like, what's your Instagram? But like, so I have this thing with my daughter where I'm like, if you're going to post, you have to like, I want you to show me what the post is. And like, we don't follow each other on social media, but she'll show me something, right? So like, she only has 2 posts.
Yeah.
And recently she was like, hey, she did like a cute like summer's gone and like showed me, her thing. And it's a private account. So it's like, We monitor any weirdos, and it's never someone she doesn't know. Like, we have rules and guidelines for it.
Yeah.
Just like I do as an adult. Like,
For sure.
I have a private account, but I also know how easy it is to like be taking a shit and scroll for 20 minutes and go, what the fuck am I doing
Yeah.
with my life?
Yeah.
I can't even get off the toilet. I'm like scrolling through dumbass stuff on social media. Like, it's highly addictive for kids and adults. So it's definitely like small doses. My middle one is like just started asking me about it. And it's for the same thing. She went to her first high school football game and is like, Dad, people are asking me for my Instagram and I don't have it. And I'm like, just give me your phone number.
Yeah.
Like, say, hey, text me. Give me a call.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to.
That's going to be cool soon, I think.
Yeah. I'm like, you don't need pressure to do this. So, and then my youngest isn't on anything at all and she's 12. So we try to keep it that way as long as possible.
Wonderful. Well, I have really enjoyed this. I have learned so much about you today. This has been such a treat.
Oh, well, thank you. This has been really fun. Like, I've really enjoyed this. And
do you hear that? He enjoyed coming to the closet, guys.
Yeah, no, this is a safe place for those of you out there. Yeah.
You know what? This is the thing, is just like, there are so many ways to do parenting and everybody's figuring it out for their own specific circumstance. And that's why I think these conversations are important, and the social media parenting stuff, while sometimes really interesting, is incredibly addictive and makes everybody feel like they're in the same situation. And that's just not true.
No, and it's like everybody's in a different spot in life. I think we find these kind of common, occurrences with raising kids where we can look at it and go like, challenging. Yes, I can be empathetic to you. You could be, as you start to experience the same things, and we understand. And it's like, parenting's the hardest thing anybody's ever going to do, because you're raising humans, and you want to do the best, for them and by them that you can. And I think just like making movies, it's like, if it was easy, everybody would do it. And I think the problem with parenting is like, a lot of people do it, but don't do it well because they're not putting, for whatever reason, like, you're not putting your heart into it. I think as long as you're putting the kids first and being, genuine and you really care, I think it's the most rewarding thing you're ever going to do. The best career move.
Best place to land on. Thanks for coming to the closet. I'm looking forward to talking again.
Thanks for having me, Carrie. I'm happy to talk to you anytime.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to tune in next week for another chat in the closet. In the meantime, follow along on Instagram and subscribe to the Mother Life Substack. This podcast was produced by Mother Life, music by Ronan Landa. See you next time.